All right, let's dive into something that could totally change how we think about type 2 diabetes. We're going to explore a really provocative idea based on the work of Professor Pandyan Natarajan that asks a simple question. What if it's not the lifelong disease we've always been told it is?
It all boils down to this one question. What if a condition that we've labeled a disease for decades is actually something else entirely? This is the key that unlocks this whole new perspective we're looking at today.
So, to really get it, we first have to start with what most of us already believe. Let's talk about the conventional view of type 2 diabetes.
For a long time, the established medical thinking has been pretty clear. Once you're diagnosed, that's it. It's a permanent thing you have for life. The goal then becomes management, right? You're focused on controlling blood sugar with your diet, with exercise, with medication, but not necessarily on reversal. This is the foundation we've all been working from.
But, and this is a big but, this is where the story starts to get really interesting. Because when you start digging into the data, you find some puzzling clues that start to chip away at that old school view.
Okay, so check out this first piece of the puzzle. It's a big one. A whopping 90% of people with type 2 diabetes are also overweight or obese. Now that is a massive correlation. It seems pretty open and shut, right? Excess weight causes diabetes. Case closed? Well, not so fast.
Because then you see this. And this is where the picture gets complicated. If being overweight was the direct and only cause, you'd expect this number to be way higher, wouldn't you? But it's not. Only about a quarter of people who are overweight end up developing the condition. So something else has to be going on here. Weight alone isn't the full story.
And this brings us to the crucial point Professor Natarajan makes. Maybe we've been focusing on the wrong thing. The common view says it's about the state of being obese, a high BMI. But his perspective suggests the real trigger, the critical part, is the dynamic process of gaining weight, no matter where you started.
Let's make this real with an example. You could have someone whose weight goes from 50 kilos up to 60 kilos. Now, their BMI might still fall in the quote-unquote normal range, but for their body, that 10-kilo gain is a huge metabolic strain, and it could be enough to trigger high blood sugar. So you see, it's not about the final number on the scale, it's about the journey of gaining that weight.
And this idea leads us to a completely new paradigm, a whole new way of looking at this. What if high blood sugar isn't the disease itself, but it's actually the body's natural, predictable response to that metabolic strain?
Okay, this analogy is everything. It's absolutely the key to understanding this whole perspective. Think about it. When you go for a hard run, your heart rate skyrockets. The technical term is tachycardia, but you don't call your doctor and say, I have heart disease. You know it's a normal temporary response to physical strain. So what if hyperglycemia, high blood sugar, is just the metabolic version of that, a sign of strain, not a sign of a broken system?
And that's exactly what a physiological response is. It's just the body's automatic programming kicking in to deal with a new situation. It's a sign that your body is adapting. And that is a fundamental, game-changing shift from seeing it as a sign of failure.
So here it is, the core idea right from the source. That uncomplicated type 2 diabetes, the kind where the only real issue is high blood sugar, might not be a disease in the way we usually think of it. It could be seen as a maladaptive physiological response. The body is responding, but that response is causing some other problems.
Okay, so it's an interesting idea. But so what? Why does looking at it through this new lens actually matter in the real world?
Well, the implications are actually huge. It could completely change our prevention strategies, shifting the focus to managing weight gain instead of just fighting obesity. It could open the door to new kinds of treatment, and, this is a big one, it could help reduce the stigma. If it's a natural response, not a personal failing, that changes the whole conversation. And maybe most powerfully, it screams that reversal isn't just a fantasy, it's possible.
This really leaves us with a final, bigger question to chew on. When our body sends us a signal, like high blood sugar, how should we interpret it? Is it a diagnosis of a permanent breakdown, or is it a message telling us that something needs to change?
And I think this quote from Professor Natarajan just sums it all up perfectly. Let's not mistake a warning light for engine failure. Think about that. A warning light on your car's dashboard doesn't mean the engine has exploded. It's an urgent signal to pull over, check the oil, and fix a problem before it gets catastrophic. And maybe, just maybe, high blood sugar is exactly that. Not the engine failure itself, but the critical warning light we desperately need to pay attention to.